The scariest, we need to leave now gut feeling that you've ever experienced. I'm a teenage girl who worked at a restaurant/pizza shop. I was harassed by these two men one weekend who were totally wasted, so they were kicked. The following weekend they returned, and they tried to sit next to me, at counter which is connected to bar, but they couldn't, so they chose a table across from me and moved both their seats to look right at me, then would only order from my counter instead of our waitresses, were staring at me, making jokes about killing a girl, and kind of just freaking me out. I ended up going to our upstairs employees only section to fold boxes, up there all alone down an hallway where nobody would hear me. I ended up feeling sick to my stomach as I heard someone walk up the stairs and whispering, and I closed the door and turned my music off and texted me mom. The two followed me up there, then tried to go down that unlocked hallway, but another waitress noticed them bothering me and caught them trying to come after me. I just had a gut feeling as I heard them coming, and she came down the hallway and told me to be quiet and hold our body weight against the door. We waited for them to leave as they stood there, waiting for me to come out before making some remarks about not knowing where I was, then going back down. My dad came and picked me up early because I just felt so off. The following day I had to come in for another shift, and as I was clocking out, the TV started playing a true crime documentary on a girl with the same name as me who was kidnapped and assaulted by two men. My stomach dropped and shortly gave my notice after that. I realized I wasn't going to be protected there and wouldn't be surprised if they returned again. My ex had been planning to have me killed and make it look like a home invasion. His behavior had shifted in a very odd way the week before. I found out later he had a woman pregnant behind my back and had planned to move her in and ship my kids off to the state. Their dad is already dead. He wanted to collect my life insurance. I got up right after he left for work that early morning, got dressed in the first things I could grab, woke up my kids and told them we just had to go. I told them not to ask questions right then, that we just had to leave. The door that led from our garage to the inside of our house was always religiously locked. That night it had been left unlocked. In the weeks leading up to this, our security alarm had been bypassed, and he tried to blame my oldest son when my son didn't even know how to do that kind of thing. My husband taught someone else how to do it. About a year and a half ago, I got out of a concert hall and I was with my friend with benefits, her friend and her friend's boyfriend. We walked across the busy street to a bar, 2:30 a.m. around this time. Got a quick tequila shot, and a drink to end the night, and we left to call the Uber. We were sitting on the side of the road on a curb waiting for the Uber, and there was a group of people that walked to our side. They just looked like bad fucking news, and they were just looking to cause problems. I look at my friends with benefits and pulled her up. She looks at me like what the fuck at first, and then she saw the "we need to GTFO" look in my eyes, so she turned around and said, "We're going to the other two." Once we got up, not 5 seconds later, bang bang bang, and I felt like I got a painful splinter in the back of my leg, but we ran to the cop car across the street to get some cover. Turns out, I got a fragment of the curb that we were sitting on where the bullet hit exactly where we were sitting in my calf. It was a wild shot that just happened to hit where we were sitting. Unfortunately, someone died that night, and my gut feeling saved my friends or myself from a fatal gunshot that wasn't even intended for us. The only reason I knew about a piece of stone embedded in my leg, and it wasn't just a muscle pull from running, was because a cop responding and running by us while we were standing behind the cop car, and he saw blood on my leg and thought I got shot. A quick statement and ER visit to fish out the half marble-sized shard of stone in my calf, while absolutely wasted, and I was on my way home at 6 a.m. I didn't really put it all together until I got home, thinking, holy shit, I can't believe I'm alive right now. My wife and I used to live in rural Exurb outside a large metropolitan area. We were on an interstate about halfway between the city and our home when my wife, who was 6 months pregnant, started having contractions. At the next off-ramp I turned around and headed back towards the city, planning on heading for an ER. I took the very first exit on the outskirts of the city. It was pretty desolate. The only thing on the 2-lane road were a couple of rock quarries that were empty after dark. There wasn't much light on the winter darkened evening. I pulled into a gravel turnout just south of the off-ramp, pulled to a stop leaving the engine running, and turned my full attention to my wife. A few minutes passed before my attention was grabbed by a car parked across the turnout, turning their headlights on with high beams. My wife grabbed my arm and said, "We've got to get out of here." And I was like, yeah, so I dropped it in gear and hauled ass down that 2-lane road towards the city. The other car gave chase for a while, but I was flooring my car. I drove a Dodge Stratus. Eventually we got into civilization and the other car turned around and fucked off. We spent the night in the hospital, narrowly avoiding the premature birth of my son. He's 17 now. We guessed I didn't notice that my headlights were shining on a drug handoff, my attention being on my wife, and it pissed the other people off. But who knows, crazies are everywhere. I've had a few over the years. Rememberable ones are when in the woods with my 1-year-old picking up pine cones. It was about 4 p.m. on a summer's day, so still light and warm. Anyway, suddenly this mixed feeling of dread and fear and of being watched came over me. I just picked him up and ran. The next day on our local community Facebook group, another mother reported that her and her 2 little girls had been flashed at in the woods and quite aggressively. Another one was I was heavily pregnant. I'd went to a hen do just for the meal and then was going home. I was about to call a taxi when the bride insisted the limo she hired dropped me home. I thought it was a funny idea for my husband to see me get home in a limo, so I agreed. The driver seemed fine with it and was a nice chatty guy. We're driving home when suddenly he starts detouring. We're by the docks and he starts pulling into some dodgy-ass car park. Not saying a word to me. I called my husband right away and very loudly told him the situation and where I was and that I'd be home in 10 minutes. The driver made some excuse about picking something up from a friend, disappeared for 5 minutes and then took me home. I'm convinced he had bad intentions, and to this day the regret and pure fear and feeling fucking stupid will never ever leave me. Ladies, we are never safe. Never presume you are. That's crazy. I was once on a military base as a student leader, and one of the people in my unit had to go off base to pick up medicine, and it was really late. We get in a military taxi to the Walgreens right outside of base, but then the military driver says he needs to pick someone up from the airport. We start driving about 30 or 40 minutes away from base, when the airport wasn't that far away, and I start feeling nervous and begin asking questions. Luckily, just as I'm freaking out, we got rear-ended at a red light. My commander had to drive out to pick us up, and he was asking a million questions about what we were doing out that far. The driver didn't have answers, and the commander snapped at him to fill out a police report and then took us home. It made no sense for 2 military women to be that far away from base, and it was a military driver as well. I was walking on the beach with my partner in a country with a pretty high crime rate, and a shady-ass dude with one of the scariest facial expressions I've ever seen started to follow us for almost 10 minutes, and as soon as I saw a bus full of tourists we jumped right on it. For sure that dude was either rob or kidnap us. Was this by any chance Brazil? Yes. I was concerned for the rest of the day. Sometimes people get killed there for $10. Someone else mentioned and I need to go home feeling her mom had. Now I haven't had an, I need to leave feeling, but I have had an, I need to check on my kid feeling. My oldest was in pre-kinder, and my youngest was in a crib yet. I set my youngest down for a nap and got my older kid ready for school and on the bus. Life is good. I've got time for coffee and a smoke in the garden before either of my kids should need me. The coffee is ready, and the bowl is packed, but I gotta pee. I was already in the downstairs bathroom with my pants unbuttoned when, for some reason, I decided that I really should use the upstairs bathroom and check on Jack. I am ever so glad I did, because today was the day he learned how to crawl out of the crib and up the shelves under the window. He managed to get the blind cords that I had tucked up out of the way. When I tell you my blood ran cold, believe it. Because my 15-month-old was laying on the floor with blue lips and that fucking cord wrapped around his neck. He's fine, it happened over 15 years ago, but my pits still sweat thinking about what might have happened. I was camping in eastern Arizona with a friend of mine. We like to hike in this particular area that's fairly isolated. We found a place probably 14 or 15 miles deep into the forest on small quad/bike trails and set up camp for the night. We put out our fire and go into our tents. Probably about 15 minutes go by. I'm reading a book on my phone, and what can I only describe as a roar sounds like it's about 50 feet away from our campsite. Never in my life have I been so terrified. I had immediate goosebumps and went into full panic mode. My friend and I both get out of our tents, look around and don't see anything because it's dark as hell, but run as fast as we can and just hop in the car. Immediately drove off and found a motel about an hour drive away. I will never forget that sound. I've seen bears in real life and looked up what a bear roar sounds like, and it was nothing like it. The one we heard was almost high-pitched and just filled me with immediate dread. No clue to this day what it was, but I'm glad we noped the fuck out of there. We came back the next day and everything was as we left it, other than the coals in the fire were spread around a bit. There was no wind that night, so I don't know what happened. I haven't gone back to that area since, and I have no desire to. Whatever made that noise definitely didn't want us there. Surfing a fairly secluded reef break, offshore across a channel. This place is in a very southern state of Australia. Overcast weather, but a still, amazing day for the waves. I was surfing with only one other guy. We were trading waves and getting to know each other in between sets. I asked what he did for a living, and he was a marine biologist. We'd both recently moved to the area and were new to surfing it as well. Despite it being extremely good surf, after 40 minutes he says, I don't like this, something feels off, I feel like I'm being watched, like I'm bait. I didn't want to leave as it was excellent surf, but this guy was a marine biologist, so I took his instinct as a sign to play it safe. We paddled back across the deep channel together as quickly as we could without panicking and walked the 15 minutes trek back to the car park talking shit the whole way. I got his mobile number for future surfs together given how small town it is here and not knowing anyone. We noticed a 15 feet inflatable boat pull up near the reef and hang around for a bit without much thought. Later that night while looking at my social media, I read about 3 fishermen at the same location we were at that morning, at the same time in their boat. As they pulled up to check their cray pots on the beach side of the reef, they were circled twice by a great white shark that was as big as their boat. That guy most likely saved me from a horrible experience that day. I messaged him with a link to the Facebook page with the comments regarding their experience. Chills ran through my body for a good 20 minutes. He was adamant he felt the presence of something and he was right. I had a 9-month-old baby and didn't go out much. One of my friends was in from out of town and asked if I wanted to see a band, whose members were people I knew socially from college. I said sure, that will be fun. I met her and a bunch of people at a bar across the street before the show and had a nice time, but got a feeling that I should go home. My husband was at home with our baby and wanted me to have fun, and I was, but I had a bad feeling to just leave. I said my goodbyes and left. There was a shooting at the bar that night. No one I knew was hurt, but they were locked in the bar for hours and it was terrifying for them. I'm glad I trusted my instincts. When I was walking home age 7 and a man asked me to help him find his puppy. I felt pure fear and adrenaline and said, I can't, I have to get home, sorry. I've never sprinted so fast in my life. My cousins were at a lake one time as kids and had split up. A man asked my cousin to help him find a puppy. He tried to take advantage of her in a bathroom but she fought him off and bit the shit out of him. I think my uncle beat the fuck out of him. Years later they found out they were living near him as he'd passed their house on the way to the shops. A family activity became throwing glass bottles at him whether he walked past. Hell have no fury like a family of bogans. Love them to bits and my cousin is doing fine. I remind my kids of this often. An adult with good intentions will never ask a kid for help. We were driving back from an impromptu family vacation. My husband and I were both driving cars, too many people, not enough alert drivers, and I was following him. We were in the left lane passing a truck and I suddenly had an overwhelming feeling that we needed to slow way down and move over immediately. I called him and told him that we needed to get over, go slower than the truck, and turn our hazards on. He thought I was a little crazy but he's learned to listen to my gut feelings and did it. Suddenly we ran into a freak ice storm and the truck slipped off the road. The car that went past us on the left slid into oncoming traffic, and 3 other cars behind us proceeded to slide off the road. There was a big dip on the side of the road and one of the cars even tipped over. We somehow came through unscathed and made it home safely. Another time I was driving to work and I was behind a work van with ladders on top of it. It wasn't particularly busy on the highway but someone was behind me somewhat close. I had a horrible feeling wash over me that I needed to move over right away. I moved one lane over about 15 seconds before one of the ladders flew off the van. It hit the road right next to me and the car that was behind me ran over it a little but luckily wasn't impaled or anything. I've had this feeling several times in my life and have even cancelled entire vacations over it. I don't know if anything would have happened for several of them, but I truly think I've avoided some serious trouble. When I was a kid an adult patted my head and I developed an instant inexplicable loathing for him and refused to be alone with him. My parents told me I was being ridiculous and forced me to be around him. He was later sent to prison for abuse of a girl. Similar thing happened to me. My mom's best friend got a new boyfriend and I immediately hated the guy. Mom asked what I thought of him. I said I thought he was Satan. I was 5 and learning how to read the picture Bible, so that was my only frame of reference to describe evil. Months after this, Mom gets a panicked call from her friend in the middle of the night. She'd come home from work to find the boyfriend passed out in the bathroom with a needle in his arm. When she tried rousing him, he strangled her unconscious. Shortly after this, he kidnapped her and her children at gunpoint and drove them across state lines. Sadly, it was the start of a long, abusive relationship. It's not funny in the context but the mental image. So what do you think of Jackass Jimmy? He's Satan. Ah, from the mouths of babes. My mom was pretty flabbergasted at the time but kept my response in the back of her head because it left her so unsettled. She said I was usually a mellow kid. Viewing to see a flat that didn't exist. Not my story, but one my mum told me from her 20s when she was living and working in London, UK. I'll do my best to retell it. Also, I'm dyslexic, so apologies in advance for grammar. This story always gives me the creeps though when I think about it. So back in her 20s, my mum was living in London and looking to move into a slightly bigger place. She'd found a really good price for a flat slightly out from the area she was hoping. She'd called the agent to book a viewing, and that's when things turned odd. So the guy booking the viewing started asking weird requests and questions, such as to bring her passport, her age, race, and physical appearance. Would she be coming on her own? Did she have a car, or would she be getting the bus? He very persistent that she should arrive by bus as it would be easiest for her, explains it was a straight road down from the bus stop to the apartment block. Obviously quite unnerved by this call but still interested because the flat looked ideal, she and my dad, who were dating at the time, decided to check the exterior and surrounding area. The day before the viewing they drove there, first passing the bus stop. He was indicating her to arrive via. From the bus stop there was about 150 to 200 meters of derelict wasteland that she would have to walk past to get to the flat, and standing at the end of the street in the location this apartment block should have been was a huge abandoned building. Smashed broken windows, graffiti, no entry signs. A lot. Definitely nothing inhabitable in sight. Still, when she tells this today, you can see how much it, rightly, shook her. Of course she didn't go to her viewing, however she informed the police, advising them of the planned time and place. From what she saw, from following up with them, they didn't appear to take this tip seriously and little was done. A couple years later though, while in a pub with some friends, she gets chatting to a guy she just met through mutual friends that night. He was in the police, and through conversation her story came up. He said that that area at the time of her viewing had a huge human trafficking problem. Still gives me chills. I exited a metro station about 2 decades ago, and the parking lot had a small area behind bushes where I parked. As I headed into the parking lot, I saw 2 guys standing between a row of cars, which looked out of place. They were watching me to see where I was going. I decided to walk right toward them, and they moved off some. Then I walked to my car, and drove away. I glanced back, to see them heading back for the bushy spot. They killed a woman shortly thereafter who was parked in that bushy area. Walking toward them probably saved you. With a lot of predators, including humans, when they expect you to flee or be afraid, but you're not, it makes them not see you as prey and back down. The feeling, not a thought because it's just instinct, is basically, she should be afraid, but she's not. That's an unknown and that's dangerous. I'll pick an easier target. Wouldn't recommend anyone trying that intentionally, unless you have no choice. With any predator, including humans, you could just as easily be perceived as a threat that needs to be attacked. Was heading south down 31 north through Indianapolis, and for some reason GPS turned us off main road. We figured maybe construction. So while off highway, decided to get something to eat and go to the bathroom. Stopped at a KFC. I went to use facilities and come out and look around a bit and realize counter is behind bulletproof windows. Then also realizing we had seen heavy drug use on the curb of the parking lot. Had a couple guys looking at us, older couple, me using a cane and driving in a rental vehicle, back and forth not saying anything, just slight nods to each other. All of a sudden it all clicks into place. I said, I don't want chicken after all, is that okay? Boyren said, yeah, we can figure it out later. Walked out slowly but got in the car and locked it immediately as the ones on the curb started our way, as well as the guys in the restaurant. We just took off like a bat out of hell. Our spider senses were way up. You may enjoy knowing I think I know exactly where that is, and the KFC is closed now. Next to a Shell station, in the parking lot of a sketchy strip mall. It's not far from my house. There's a DQ across the street that got posted on Reddit a year or 2 ago because the sign said, the parking lot is for eating frozen treats, not drug deals, or something to that effect. I am not sure. It might be, lots of houses torn down or collapsing. Don't really remember other restaurants. I am not sure to this day why GPS took us that way. When I was about 8, in 1985, an old El Camino pulled up alongside my friend and I, with a man saying he knew my mom. He did know her name, but something felt off, so I grabbed my friend and ran. When we told my mom, she went white and called the cops. Turns out, this guy thought my mom had stolen his job at the steel mill she worked at the time and wanted to hurt her. He already had a warrant out for nearly killing his wife that morning. When I was 16, my mom had a terrible feeling about an outing some friends and I were going on. Hindsight being 2020, it was a stupid move for me to go anyway, but I did. Long story short, there was a car accident, my 2 best friends died, and I nearly did. It'll be 30 years in November. I still regret getting in that car every day. My friends might still be alive if I hadn't. My mom had that mama spidey sense, she still does. More recently, I was at our other house in the country with my oldest son and his wife and kids. There was a break in the storms, and my son decided to go home instead of spending the night. I was filled with dread at the thought of them going home so late, since we were dealing with intermittent but severe storms. So much dread that I started crying and begging them not to leave. Thankfully, they agreed. We all started home the next morning with them following me and my husband. We came up on this stretch of road that we know has no lights at night, to see police barricading a washed-out bridge, and cranes retrieving cars. We all piled out of our cars to ask the officers what happened. Apparently, there were several cars that had kept going, not knowing the bridge was out. The lone survivor in the first car had told the police that they went off the bridge at about 9:30 p.m. That's about the time my son wanted to leave. My husband just looked at me, and my boy hugged me extra tight, because he knew what could have happened. In college I was studying at my school's business school building, waiting to meet a friend, and I had a sudden sense of dread. I texted my friend that I would just meet her at her dorm later instead of meeting at the business school, and I left to walk to a nearby library instead. When I got to the library about 20 minutes later, I checked my phone and I had nearly 20 missed calls and texts from my friends who knew I was at the business building. Literally seconds after I left, a student entered the building and stabbed multiple people, killing one professor and injuring several students. It happened in the room I had just been in. I was supposed to get off of my retail job at 10 p.m. and catch the first bus I needed to get home. My manager had me stay later, so I had to catch a late bus and change my route since my usual second bus stopped running. I did notice this late bus ride was empty, but the 10 p.m. one was usually pretty full. The stop wasn't my usual spot, so I just sat to wait for the bus. I was texting my best friend and asking her to pick me up because sometimes buses don't show or are late. She wasn't answering me since she ended up working late too. And then I noticed my surroundings. I was just off of a main street, just south of several closed corner stores. I realized this bus bench was on the street nearest to a park that closes at sundown. There were no cars and no people. The street light near the bus stop was busted too. I immediately felt unnerved and trapped. Nothing was open and nothing was nearby. A man was walking towards the bench I was waiting on. He was walking from the park. He would pass under a street lamp and be illuminated and then disappear before being lit up by the light again. I felt my heart pounding in my chest. He came up behind the bench and didn't sit down next to me, just stood behind the bench, slightly to my right. Then he started walking around the bench, just circling me. I called my friend and acted like she had answered, but instead I left a voicemail. "Hey, you almost here?" "Yep, I'm still here. I'll hop in as soon as you pull up. Wanna grab food?" "Nah, we had McDonald's last week." The dude kept circling me. I was too afraid to even look at his face. I hung up and put my phone away and realized I had my box cutter in my bag. I pulled it out and started playing with it, just pushing the blade in and out. He stopped circling me and I finally looked at him and stood up. He turned north and walked away. My friend pulled up soon after. We drove right past the guy who was still walking aimlessly. I bought a car about a week later, and I always drove my coworkers home if we worked late together and they needed a ride. "So your friend got the voicemail and got off work to come get you knowing something was wrong?" If I remember correctly, this was like 16 years ago. She got my texts and was already driving to me, which is why she didn't answer my call. Mine doesn't have a pleasant or good ending. I was 18 and at a tattoo expo with my boyfriend at the time. At this time, my grandmother, basically my mom, had been struggling with depression for about 2 years. Numerous trials of various meds, regular psych appointments and therapy, and even a hospitalization the previous summer for suicidal ideation. While at this expo, I got a call from my uncle who asked me if I could take her to her psych appointment she had scheduled that day. I explained where I was at and that I wouldn't make it back home in time. He was like, "Okay, let me call her and let her know I'll take her." I went about my business at this tattoo expo, and then he called me a few minutes later, saying she didn't answer. I immediately looked at my boyfriend and said, "We need to go, something is wrong." Mind you, this is a Friday afternoon in downtown Phoenix and our house was about 35 minutes north, and traffic was atrocious. We left the expo and took side streets until I got to a point where I knew the freeway traffic wasn't as bad. I hopped on the freeway, and within 2 minutes of getting on, I tried to merge into the HOV lane. As I turned to check my blind spot, traffic had stopped and I ended up crashing into the car in front of me. I tried to call my actual bio mom. I was driving her Jeep, but it kept going to voicemail. Turns out she had been calling me. She was freaked out after my uncle called saying he couldn't get a hold of their mom, my grandma. She was calling me to ask me to go to her house and see if my grandmother was there. At this point in her mental health concerns, she didn't drive, which is why we had to take her. My mom and stepdad met with me and my boyfriend where we were waiting for cops to show up because of the accident. My mom was panicked and wanted me to leave with her to get back home to see what was going on. My stepdad said no, she needs to stay, take my boyfriend with you in my truck so you can take the HOV lane home. She did that. My stepdad and I talked to the cops. I got a ticket and all that jazz. While we were driving back toward where we lived, he had gotten a call from my mom. Dude was stoic during the discussion and I didn't pick up that something had happened. Turns out, my grandmother had taken her own life at my mom/stepdad's house with my mom's .357. My mom found her and my boyfriend at the time had to scramble to call 911. Even as my stepdad and I rounded the corner to the house and I saw police, fire department. I didn't know what had happened. I saw my uncle and grandfather and boyfriend standing outside, and as my boyfriend was about to tell me what happened, I heard my mom tell the police that my grandmother shot herself. I just remember screaming and crying. I don't believe in God or higher power type stuff, but I can't help but feel like that car accident was fucking kismet. As awful as it was for my mom, and she still deals with very untreated PTSD, I'm glad I didn't find my grandmother. I would have been the first one at the house had I not crashed the car. This was hard to write. It's a day that I frequently replay the events. It's been 12 years and I still have an intense reaction as I type this. If you made it to this point, thanks for reading. I'm so sorry for your loss. You didn't deserve to go through this. Thank you. It's been a tough road, but I'm doing okay. I hope you find your peace. That's a rough hand to be dealt. Thank you. I've done a lot of healing, but there's some days where it still feels shitty. That's just how trauma works though.